الرحيم إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة إذا رجت الأرض رجا وست الجبال بسا أزواجا ثلاثة فأصحاب الميمنة ما أصحاب الميمنة وأصحاب المشأمة ما أصحاب المشأمة والسابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون في جنات النعيم ثلة من الأولين وقليل من الآخرين على سرر موضونة متكئين عليها متقابلين يطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون بأكواب وأباريق وكأس من معين لا يصدعون عنها ولا ينزفون وفاكهة مما يتخيرون ولحم طير مما يشتهون وحور عين كأمثال اللؤلؤ المكنون جزاء بما كانوا يعملون لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا تأثيما إلا قيلا سلاما سلاما وأصحاب اليمين ما أصحاب اليمين في سدر مخضود وطلح منضود وظل ممدود وماء مسكوب وفاكهة كثيرة لا مقطوعة ولا ممنوعة وفرش مرفوعة إنا أنشأناهن إنشاء فجعلناهن أبكارا عربا أترابا لأصحاب اليمين ثلة من الأولين وثلة من الآخرين وأصحاب الشمال ما أصحاب الشمال في سموم وحميم وظل من يحموم لا بارد ولا كريم إنهم كانوا قبل ذلك مترفين وكانوا يصرون على الحنث العظيم وكانوا يقولون إذا متنا وكنا ترابا وعظاما أئنا لمبعوثون أو آباؤنا الأولون قل إن الأولين والآخرين لمجموعون إلى ميقات يوم معلوم ثم إنكم أيها الضالون المكذبون لآكلون من شجر من زقوم فمالئون منها البطون فشاربون عليه من الحميم فشاربون شرب الهيم هذا نزلهم يوم الدين نحن خلقناكم فلولا تصدقون أفرأيتم ما تمنون أنتم تخلقونه أم نحن الخالقون نحن قدرنا بينكم الموت وما نحن بمسبوقين على أن نبدل أمثالكم وننشئكم فيما لا تعلمون ولقد علمتم النشأة الأولى فلولا تذكرون أفرأيتم ما تحرثون أأنتم تزرعونه أم نحن الزارعون لو نشاء لجعلناه حطاما فظلتم تفكهون إنا لمغرمون بل نحن محرومون فرأيتم الماء الذي تشربون أأنتم أنزلتموه من المزن أم نحن المنزلون لو نشاء جعلناه جاجا فلولا تشكرون أفرأيتم النار التي تورون أأنتم أنشأتم شجرتها أم نحن المنشئون نحن جعلناها تذكرة ومتاعا للمقوين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم ألا أقسم بمواقع النجوم وإنه لقسم لو تعلمون عظيم إنه لقرآن كريم في كتاب مكنون لا يمسه إلا المطهرون تنزيل من رب العالمين أفبهذا الحديث أنتم مدينون وتجعلون رزقكم أنكم تكذبون فلولا إذا بلغت الحلقوم وأنتم حينئذ تنظرون ونحن أقرب إليه منكم ولكن لا تبصرون فلولا إن كنتم غير مدينين ترجعونها إن كنتم صادقين فأما إن كان من المقربين فروح وريحان وجنة نعيم وأما إن كان من أصحاب اليمين فسلام لك من أصحاب اليمين وأما إن كان من المكذبين الضالين فنزل من حميم وتصلية جحيم إن هذا لهو حق اليقين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده اللهم صن وجوهنا باليسار ولا توئنا بالإقتار ونسترزق طالب رزقك ونستعتف شرار خلقك ونشتغل بحمد من أعطانا ونبتلى بذنب من منعنا، وأنت من وراء ذلك كله أهل العطاء والمنع. اللهم كما سنت وجوهنا عن السجود إلا لك، فسن عن الحاجات إلا إليك بجودك وكرمك وفضلك يا أرحم الراحمين يا أرحم الراحمين يا أرحم الراحمين. اغننا بفضلك عمن سواك. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد، وهب لنا به صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم من رزقك حلال الطيب المبارك ما تسون به وجوهنا عن التعرض إلى أحد من خلقك، واجعل اللهم لنا إليه طريقا سهلا من غير فتنة ولا محنة ولا منة ولا تبعة لأحد، وجنبنا اللهم الحرام حيث كان وأين كان وعند من كان، وحل بيننا وبين أهله، واقبض عنا أيديهم واصرف عنا وجوههم وقلوبهم حتى لا نتقلب إلا فيما يرضيك، ولا نستعين بنعمتك إلا فيما تحبه وترضاه برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إن كان رزقنا في السماء فأنزله، وإن كان في الأرض فأخرجه، وإن كان معسرا فيسره، وإن كان بعيدا فقربه، وإن كان حراما فطهره، وإن كان قليلا فكثره، وإن كان معدوما فأوجده، وإن كان قليلا فكثره، وإن كان معدوما فأوجده، وإن كان موقوفا فأجره، وإن كان ذنبا فاغفره، وإن كان سيئة فامحها، وإن كان خطيئة فتجاوز عنها، وإن كان عرثة فاقلها، وبارك لنا في جميع ذلك إنك ملك مقتدر، وما تشاءه من أمر يكون. يا من إذا أراد شيئا إنما يقول له كن فيكون. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، والسلام على المرسلين، والحمد لله رب العالمين في كل لحظة أبدا عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم يا الله يا علي يا عظيم يا حليم يا عليم، أنت ربي وعلمك حسبي، فنعم الرب ربي ونعم الحسب حسبي، تنصر من تشاء وأنت العزيز الرحيم. نسألك العصمة في الحركات والسكنات والكلمات والإرادات والخطرات من الشكوك والذنون والأوهام الساترة لقلوب عن مطالعة الغيوب، فقد ابتلي المؤمنون وزلزلوا زلزالا شديدا، وإذ يقول المنافقون والذين في قلوبهم مرض ما وعدنا الله ورسوله إلا غرورا، وثبتنا وانصرنا وسخر لنا هذا البحر كما سخرت البحر لموسى، وسخرت النار لإبراهيم، وسخرت الجبال والحديد لداود، وسخرت الرياح والشياطين والجن لسليمان، وسخر لنا كل بحر هو لك في الأرض والسماء والملك والملكوت، وبحر الدنيا بحر الآخرة، وسخر لنا كل شيء يا من بيده ملكوت كل شيء. كافا يا عين صاد كافا يا عين صاد كافا يا عين صاد. انصرنا فإنك خير الناصرين، وافتح لنا فإنك خير الفاتحين، واغفر لنا فإنك خير الغافرين، وارحمنا فإنك خير الراحمين، وارزقنا فإنك خير الرازقين، واهدنا ونجنا من القوم الظالمين، وهب لنا ريحا طيبة كما هي في علمك، وانشرها علينا من خزائن رحمتك، واحملنا بها حمل الكرامة مع السلامة والعافية في الدين والدنيا والآخرة، إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم يسر لنا أمورنا مع الراحة لقلوبنا وأبداننا، والسلامة والعافية في ديننا ودنيانا، وكلنا صاحبا في سفرنا وخليفة في أهلنا، واطمس على وجوه أعدائنا وامسخهم على مكانتهم فلا يستطيعون المضي ولا مجيء إلينا، ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون، ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم، تنزيل العزيز الرحيم، لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون. لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون شاهت الوجوه شاهت الوجوه شاهت الوجوه وعنت الوجوه للحي القيوم وقد خاب من حمل ظلما قاسيم حاميم عين سين قاف مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان حاميم 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 هم الأمر وجاء النصر فعلينا لا ينصرون حاميم تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز العليم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب الشديد العقاب ذي الطول لا إله إلا هو إليه المصير بسم الله بابنا تبارك حيطاننا ياسين سقفنا كافا يا عين صار كفايتنا حاميم عين سين قاف حمايتنا فسيكفيكهم الله وهو السميع العليم ستر العرش مسبول علينا وعين الله ناظرة إلينا بحول الله لا يقدر علينا والله من ورائهم محيط بل هو قرآن مجيد في لوح محفوظ والله خير حافظا وهو أرحم الراحمين والله خير حافظا وهو أرحم الراحمين الله خير حافظا وهو أرحم الراحمين إن ولي الله الذي نزل الكتاب وهو يتولى الصالحين حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء والسميع العليم بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء والسميع العليم بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء والسميع العليم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل تسليما الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسي السماوات والأرض ولا يؤود حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم يا الله يا نور يا حق يا مبين اكسني من نورك وعلمني من علمك وأفهمني عنك وأسمعني منك بصرني بك وأقمني بشهودك وعرفني الطريق إليك وهونها علي بفضلك وألبسني لباس التقوى منك إنك على كل شيء قدير يا سميع يا عليم يا حليم يا علي يا عظيم يا الله اسمع دعائي بخصائص لطفك آمين أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات كلها من شر ما خلق أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات كلها من شر ما خلق أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات كلها من شر ما خلق يا عظيم السلطان يا قديم الإحسان يا دائم النعمة يا باسط الرزق يا كثير الخيرات يا واسع العطاء يا دافع البلاء ويا سامع الدعاء يا حاضرا ليس بغائب يا موجودا عند الشدائد يا خفي لطف يا لطيف الصنع يا حليما لا يعجل اقضي حاجتي برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم إنك تعلم ما نحن فيه وما نطلبه ونرتجيه من رحمتك في أمرنا كله فيسر لنا ما نحن فيه من سفرنا وما نطلبه من حوائجنا وقرب علينا المسافات وسلمنا من العلل والآفات ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا تسلط علينا من لا يرحمنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين في كل لحظة أبدا عدد خلقه ومداد كلمات نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We continue with the 40 Principles of Religion by Imam al-Ghazali on page 235. I say, if you were from among those who possess insight, the matter of the afterlife would have unveiled to you explicitly, just as the matter of this world has been unveiled. If you are not from among the possessors of insight, page 235. Yeah, but continue on top. That'll be fair. Okay, 234. How can you think of denying his generosity? How then can you think of denying his generosity in this world? Below that. Perhaps you say, the end results of worldly affairs have been unveiled to me directly, and my heart is at rest with them. As for the matter of the afterlife, I have never witnessed it, and I do not find within my heart any real affirmation of it. For this reason, my desire for abandoning the world has languished. Hence, I take in cash what has been promised on credit, since I do not have confidence in it. I say, if you were from among those who possess insight, the matter of the afterlife would have unveiled to you explicitly, just as the matter of this world has been unveiled. If you are not from among the possessors of insight, then reflect on their statements, for truly in regards to the matter of the afterlife, people are 4 types. One type affirms paradise and hell as the Quran has informed, as you have already heard about kinds of delight, the kinds of delight in former and the penalties of the latter. A second type do not affirm physical pleasure and pain, but rather affirm them as imaginary states, like those that occur in dreams, such that each individual in paradise or hell will view it by himself. They claim that the effect on him will be like the real effect, since the pain of a sleeping person is like the pain of a wakeful person, from which he is delivered only by waking up. Whereas in the afterlife, this is a constant which never subsides. A third type affirms rational pain and pleasure, claiming that this is greater than the senses. They illustrate this with the example of feeling the pleasure of sovereignty or feeling its loss. For indeed, the loss of sovereignty causes much pain to the one who is overcome by his enemy, who takes his kingdom and denigrates him. Despite the fact that an enemy's victory does not harm the body. These 3 types are those who perceive with insight. Among them are the prophets, saints, and theistic philosophers. All of them agree in affirming an eternal happiness and an eternal sorrow. Indeed, happiness is only attained through abandoning the world and turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you were to become sick and were not from among the people of insight concerning medicine, but you saw that premier physicians have agreed upon a thing, you would not hesitate to follow them. A 4th type is not from among those who perceive with insight in regards to divine matters. Rather, they are from the physicians and astronomers whose observations are limited to the 4 natures: heat, cold, moisture, and dryness, and how they interact. They are of the opinion that the substance of the spirit is dependent upon these, and do not comprehend the reality of the true godly spirit, that of someone who knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Instead, they perceive nothing but this physical spirit that is the breath brought to maturity by the beating of the heart, and that spreads through the arteries to the entire body, thus sustaining sensory perception and movement. This is the spirit that is also found in dumb animals. As for the special human spirit that is ascribed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in respect of which he said, "And I have breathed into him from my spirit," chapter 15, verse 29, chapter 38, verse 72 from Al-Quran. They do not comprehend it. They think that death is non-existence and that the spirit goes back to the corruptible components of the body. With regards to these people, you are between 2 matters, either to assert the possibility of them being wrong or to know decisively the correctness of their statement. If you assert the possibility of their error, it is incumbent for you to turn away from the world by sheer probability. If you were truly hungry, came upon food, and set yourself to eat it, then a boy informed you that there was poison in it, or that a snake had spewed venom in it, or venom it, you would bear the hunger and leave the food. You would say, "If he is lying, then I won't miss anything but the pleasure of eating. But if he is telling the truth, then therein is my destruction." Such a probability is unassailable. If only I knew, with the possibility of an eternity in hell, how a rational person could be so bold to assail the notion of the afterlife. How could he accept anything but complete certainty in avoiding that possibility? Even the poet al-Ma'ari, despite his feeble intellect, said, "The astronomer and the physician both claim that the dead will not be gathered. I say to them, if your statement is correct, then I'm no loser. But if my statement is correct, then it is your loss." On the other hand, if you say, "I know for certain that they are truthful, that death is non-existence, that there is no punishment and no reward, that the prophets and the saints are delusional and deceptive, and that the reality of truth has only been unveiled to the ignorant physician. And if you claim, I know this like I know that two is more than one, to the point that no doubt troubles me, then this indicates the corruption of your makeup, the feebleness of your intellect, and your remoteness from accepting treatment, notwithstanding all this. However, it is said to you, if you were seeking comfort in the world, then your reason would also compel you to struggle against the desire and break it. For indeed, finding comfort in freedom and deliverance from the grip of desires is not in following them. If they were to gain power over you, then they would be completely painful and drive you to bearing every humility and hardship. The only comfortable one in this world is the one who abandons it and has little interest in it. As for its seeker, he has not ceased to toil therein. The one who denies the afterlife would also abandon the world if he understood even a little, due to its abundant toil, ephemeral nature, and the vileness of those who share in it. So if you surmise nothing about the affair of the afterlife, nor have any certainty about the nature of the world upon witnessing its ills, then you are nothing but deluded. Then you are nothing but a deluded imbecile, and you will most definitely come to know its news after a while. It is said to the likes of you, leave them to eat and enjoy themselves, and be distracted by false hope, for they will come to know. Quran chapter 15, verse 3.
Rahimahullah Ta'ala, when you read his works of this nature and the manner in which he presents his arguments,
Allah.
Ajib. These passages must be read over and over. And these last few pages of the book doesn't require much clarification and explanation. They're very self-explanatory. Salah. So I thought it would be a good opportunity. 3 rak'ah. And nobody said anything, mashallah. Until Sheikh came to me to tell me that 3 rak'ah. Alhamdulillah. Mashallah. Masjid is kind. This happened with me many years ago in the Garlandale Masjid. After the Salah, please called me out. Mashallah. But some brothers wanted to know what the status of the Salah is. So when she told me that we pray 3, I stood up to complete the Salah 4 rak'ah. If you complete your Salah, if you end your Salah and then somebody notifies you that you missed something in the Salah, it's the buffer period for you to continue the Salah. It is usually marked with the duration it takes you to make 2 short rak'ahs of Salah. So within that buffer zone, you stand up and you complete your Salah. Now, the question, the more important question is that somebody that follows the Imam prays 3 rak'ah and he is in a state of doubt whether he prayed 3 or 4, so he just follows the Imam. When he ends out to complete the 4th rak'ah, he stands up with the Imam and that's it. There's no issue. His Salah is valid. The concern comes about with somebody who knows he only made 3 rak'ah and that he was supposed to stand up to a 4th rak'ah. What is the status of that person's Salah? So the normal rule is that somebody that studies fiqh, he should know that when the Imam makes an error, he should follow the Imam in that error. So if I see the Imam is making an error, then I should break away from the Imam and complete my Salah by myself. The Imam made a mistake, so I end the Imam, I stand up and I complete my 4 rak'ah. In his error, that it invalidates my salah. That's if I know. So if I studied fiqh and I know that by following the Imam in the mistake the Imam is making, it will invalidate my salah. These people have a strong inclination that the right thing to do is to follow the Imam. So they follow thinking that they should be following the Imam, then they will be excused. We had here now, raka'at with me. They were in a state of doubt. He stood up with me into a 4th raka'at, they salah as well. Raka'at, they were not in a state of doubt, but they just decided to follow the Imam. And then the Imam stood up. They should have stood up with the Imam and prayed with the Imam, and the salah would have been valid on account of them being ignorant of the fact that following the Imam in an error invalidates the salah. And then of course the last person is somebody knows if I follow the Imam in his error, it invalidates my salah. And then he still follows the Imam in an error, that person's salah is not valid. So those who are praying with us, they fall into one of 2 categories. Either they doubted with the Imam and then followed the Imam and ended the salah and then stood up to complete the salah, their salah is valid. And those who knew they made 3 and still followed the Imam ignorantly, not knowing following the Imam in his error is going to invalidate his salah, also be considered valid. And therefore I thought there's no need for me to explain immediately. I thought some other brothers of the best time to learn is the time when the error is made. Rasulullah he prays for one day, Salatul Asr, Dhuhr or Asr. And the Prophet ﷺ performed 3 raka'at instead of 4. So a companion that was known as Dhul Yadain, he had the nickname Dhul Yadain, he shouted after the Prophet ﷺ completed the salah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So he said, Akusirat is-salat, Ya Rasulullah, am naseed. Has the prayer been shortened, Ya Rasulullah? Forget, did you make an error? So Rasul ﷺ made shortened. Completed the salah 4 rak'ah. One question, I spoke after my salah. So our fuqaha, they say that if 4 rak'ah, if you exchange more than 6 words, your salah becomes invalid. You can't stand up and complete the salah. If you exchange less than 6 words, let's say Porfiya. In other words, somebody asks, did you pray 3 or 4? And he says, I think you prayed 3. Both of them spoke less than 6 words. 6 words shouldn't be looked at exactly as 6 words will be. It says, Porfiya, I don't have time to explain what that means. Give me your phrase and I'll tell you whether 6 words or not. But when they said those 6 words, and the companion here, he said, it was technically more than 6 words, but based on how it's counted as 6. But the Prophet should have been salah, Mujahideen should have been salah. The Prophet didn't tell him afterwards that you spoke too many words in the people. And your salah became. So what transpired here now is everybody's salah will be valid based on my estimation. Except she. Because she stood up, he walked to me, he spoke to me. But he didn't make salah. Same condition to make salah. We're coming to the issue. On the masala of fiqh, some masala I wanted to also discuss a few days ago. Since we're on fiqh, I don't want to return to another fiqh masala later. Somebody asked me, and also to be reminded of that the usage of perfume of door for somebody that passed is the Islam. You will notice that none of the students of knowledge here of the Shaykh use perfume or not. Even though the Sunnah to apply perfume for making salah, they don't do that for fasting because it's makruh. Now, mother is makruh to apply perfume by fasting. Why? It's production. And the state of a fasting person is that it stays away from nothing. What's more serious than a plant perfume is the wasn't the sound working? Did they open up? So, the usage of perfume is not true. But the usage of bukhur, when you burn wood on a coal, it's makruh and disliked, and it does not invalidate the fast. But I think all other three madhab says that the burning of bukhur, if you inhale bukhur while fasting, it invalidates the fast. So perfume is makruh, and bukhur, even though it doesn't invalidate the fast in our madhab, in the other madhab, it invalidates the fast. That's why we're not burning bukhur. Otherwise, you'll be burning bukhur in the Rawha. No. Perfume was a great sunnah of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam placed a great amount of importance when it came to perfume. And Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's perfume was known as, they called it al-Ghazali. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to have the most expensive perfume on the market. He would purchase. Never buy the most expensive anything unless it came to perfume. And Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam perfume, the predominant mixture in his perfume was oud. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But he also had musk perfume. It was a mixture of oud. They had some musk in it. They had some amber. And they had some camphor. The predominant was oil. Everything else of the smell of oil. And from the sunnah is to apply oud to the top of the hand. That was the practice of some of the Sahaba, and it would be assumed that they learned that from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Sunnah to apply before Salah, before reciting Quran, before attending gatherings where you meet your Muslim brothers. But it's makruh while in a state of fasting. Tamam. Al-Imam al-Ghazali, mashallah, he condensed the of ostentation. I was just browsing through it now, and we'll see it in the group. I think there is a group. Or they were supposed to create one. No. Create a group of the Rawha. It will be shared over. So if you go through the diagram, Shaykh Zahid will give you a recap of the ostentation, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. So Imam Ghazali, yesterday we concluded with a discussion about exception. He said that in his Ihya Ulumuddin, he dedicated an entire chapter to someone that is deluded, deceived. His nafs plays tricks with him. So he makes him think that he's a person of humility, but he's not. He makes him think he's a person of kindness and generosity, but he is not. Right? So he had a discussion regarding that. In today's, then also, yesterday we never commented on this, but the reading concluded on a discussion that spoke about, remember we said that the only way to truly rid oneself from these bad qualities and characteristics, blameworthy traits, is to replace them with beautiful traits. I said, I made the example that adorning yourself with beautiful character, with refined character, with praiseworthy characteristics, is like a chemo to the cancer of bad qualities. If the bad qualities that you are getting rid of is not treated with this chemo of praiseworthy qualities, it will forever remain and forever grow. Right? And then Imam Ghazali now, he said that one of the most serious illnesses of the heart that the person must address He said he believes it to be hubbud dunya, loving this dunya, love of this dunya, and all other sins and bad characteristics are born from loving of this dunya. Now, so he said the only way you can rid yourself from loving this dunya, this is how his hujjah is, his arguments that he raised here is like really remarkable. He said you need to find a place for you to be alone, to detach yourself from everyone and everything. And then start pondering, why are you focused on this dunya? And why are you turning away from the akhirah? Now, and you will then come to the realization that the only reason that you are focused on dunya and turning away from akhirah is pure ignorance and heedlessness. Because he said the maximum life that you can live in this world is 100 years. Now, so he said that imagine that the whole world can be given to you in this 100 years. Let's say in your 100 years maximum life that you have, the most you can possibly achieve is the whole world. Your maximum life, 100 years. In this 100 years, no matter how much you strive and work, let's say you become the most successful person ever in the history of the humanity of this existence, and thus you become the possessor of the entire world. Can you become the possessor of more than what the world has? No, that's all that's in our reach. It's not going to happen, but Imam Ghazali said, let's imagine you're going to live 100 years, and then imagine you're going to own everything in this world, from the east to the west. Now, he said that by doing that, even if you were to achieve that, you will lose out on a life that is eternal. And a kingdom that, the lowest kingdom that you will receive in the afterlife is 10 times the size of this dunya. And that your 100 years in this world does not even equal a moment in the afterlife. Right? وَإِنَّ يَوْمًا عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ كَأَلْفِ سَنَةٍ مِمَّا تَعُدُّونَ. So the 100 years that you imagine you can get doesn't equal a moment in the afterlife, because the afterlife is eternal. And then he said, if you can't understand what eternity means, he said, look at imagine that this dunya is filled with grain. Right? Imagine this whole world is just filled with grain. Like more grains of sand that you find in this world, just filled with grain. And then imagine that every 10,000 years, or every million years, every million years, a bird comes and removes 1 grain. How much grain there is? Billions and billions and billions and billions of grain. The dunya is filled with grain. And every year, every million years, a bird comes and it takes away 1 grain. Right? What's going to happen? He said that billions of grain will eventually be eaten by this bird, even if it's taking 1 every million years. And after that entire period is gone, a grain every million years times a billion grain, all of that time, eventually it will come to an end. And it's not even the equal of a moment of eternity. So he's exaggerating that how can you be so foolish to give priority to this life, which at best is not going to go beyond 100 years, and at best is not going to be, you're not going to earn more than what this dunya has, and the akhirah, everything is greater and better. So now on top of it, you are pleased to see yourself exerting yourself in business. You're exerting yourself with politics and arguments, and you're vying and you're competing for what you spend your whole life exerting yourself to attain things of this dunya which is uncertain. And in most instances, before you achieve what you want to achieve in this dunya, you die. Now, so you are exerting yourself so much to achieve something of this dunya that is uncertain whether you're going to achieve it or not. In the face of an akhirah that there is certainty that you will get what you will receive in akhirah. So you are leaving that which is certain, paradise and the reward that lies for you in paradise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gazing upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're leaving that which is certain and you're directing all your efforts for something which is uncertain. How does an intelligent person do that? He said, somebody will say, yes, I hear what you're saying, Imam Ghazali, but I only interact this way and I work for this dunya because I expect from my Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He's going to pardon me. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is generous and Allah is merciful. Don't people do that? Don't we say, no, we'll continue, but Allah is forgiving? So he said that if that is the case, that you believe Allah is generous and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is kind and merciful, then why don't you stop your business and stop your produce and stop all your farming and stop seeking wealth and just put your hopes in the fact that Allah is kind and generous? Perhaps Allah will let you walk over and dig up a treasure one day. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. Allah is generous. How come are you putting your faith, you're taking a gamble on your statement that Allah is kind and generous when it comes to my afterlife? But when it comes to my dunya, I don't take a gamble on my statement, Allah is kind and generous. I work hard for my dunya. But it's the same Allah that's kind and generous here, it's the same Allah that's kind and generous there. So you're relying upon Allah is kind and generous when it comes to something greater. When it comes to the dunya, you don't rely on. Then you want to work hard and put effort in it. No. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said that you must know that you're expecting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just to pardon and forgive you despite living a bad life in this world. It's like not working and making effort for dunya and just expecting that one day I'm going to come across a treasure and it's going to fulfill all my needs. He said rather, it's even more far-fetched for you just to have your hopes pinned in the fact that Allah is going to forgive me tomorrow than coming across a treasure in this dunya that's going to take care of all your needs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَأَن لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. Man will only get that which he strives for. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَمْ نَجْعَلُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ كَالْمُفْسِدِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَمْ نَجْعَلُ الْمُتَّقِينَ كَالْفُجَّارِ. Are we going to make those who do good deeds in this world like those who spread mischief in this world? Are we going to make them the same? How can they be the same? Are we going to make the muttaqeen like those who disobey Allah, the fujjar? No. So how come do you deny Allah's generosity in this world by going to work and making effort for dunya? So you don't just rely on Allah's generosity, but when it comes to something greater, the afterlife, you want to say, inshallah, Allah is going to forgive me, Allah is kind, Allah is merciful. No intellectual person can accept such an argument. No. So like this, he made some ajib arguments. He spoke about another person. Somebody comes along, he says, you know what, the reason why I draw a distinction between my attitude to the akhirah and my attitude to this dunya is that the dunya is here in front of me, I can see it. The akhirah, I don't know if it's there. I can't say with certainty if it exists, if it's really there. Right? Therefore, I am prepared to sacrifice for that what I can see, more than what I'm prepared to sacrifice for that what I cannot see. In other words, he's saying, this dunya is certain. I'm sacrificing for something that is witnessed, that can be seen, touched, can be smelt, can be tasted. Right? So I'm willing to sacrifice. But the akhirah, I don't know if it's there. How do I know? Right? So, Ghazali then said that people in relation to the belief in the akhirah are four categories. The first is people that confirm and believe that Jannah is there, as how it comes in the Quran, as how they heard of its pleasures, as how they heard of its punishment. Now, some people of this category, they've seen aspects of Jannah, like the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to him the existence of Jannah wasn't a question. He saw Jannah with his own eyes. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying one day in Salah, and then he took 2 steps to the front, he stretched out his arm, and then he came back, took 2 steps back and completed the Salah. The Sahaba wanted to know, Ya Rasulullah, what happened in your Salah today? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I saw Jannah, and I saw its fruits. And then the Prophet ﷺ eventually saw that as a distraction, so he stepped back and he diverted his focus away from Jannah to the creator of Jannah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he saw Jannah. So they confirmed Jannah is there. Similar to this was Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala an. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an used to say that لو كشف الغطاء ما ازددت يقينا. He said, if the veils were to be removed and I was to see Jannah with the eyes of my head, my conviction in the existence of the afterlife in Jannah and Jahannam would not increase one bit. Because he said that my eyes can deceive me, but the words of the Prophet ﷺ cannot deceive me. If the Prophet said it's there, it's there. Khalas. Another group of people is that people that they don't have that level of conviction regarding the existence of Jannah. They may not have seen it, or they don't have the same level of conviction like Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala an, but they do believe it's there. Right? They haven't experienced its joy or its pain, but they confirm through the medium of imagination that Jannah and Jahannam is there, that the afterlife is there, like someone in a dream. But they believe it's there, and they have no doubt that it's there. And when they hear about its pleasures, it's as if they experience its pleasures, and when they hear about its punishment, it's as if they feel the pain of the punishment of the afterlife. Then there's a third group of people who they, based on their intellects, reach a conclusion that afterlife exists. Right? The intellects tell them that the afterlife exists. He made the example here that somebody he draws to mind a kingdom that he has, and then the pain that he would experience should he lose that kingdom. Today you can do this by reading stories, or not that you're supposed to be watching programs on television, but sometimes you feel the emotions of another, right? So you draw to mind a kingdom and the loss of that kingdom. So it's a process of the intellect where a person reaches an understanding that Jannah and Jahannam and the afterlife exist, and born from that is emotion and feeling. At the end of the day, it all comes down to all these 3 categories. At the end of the day are people that accept that there is an afterlife. That's basically what it comes down to. Now, he said then there's a 4th category. The 4th category is people that they are like physicians, he said, or astronomers. They cannot think beyond this physical world. They can only speak of that which they experience, their senses. Right? And this is a problematic category. In other words, that this is basically atheists. They can't see beyond the physical. They can't see beyond the physical. So Imam Ghazali says regarding these people that if you are not from the first three categories, those who experience Jannah, those who believe in Jannah, or those whose intellects brought them to a point to acknowledge that there is an afterlife, if you're not of those first three categories, but you're from the category of the thinking of an atheist that cannot go beyond that which is physical and seen and touched, then he said that if you fall into this category, then you are further divided into one of two groups. You either hold this view, let's say you're an atheist, but you believe that it's possible that I can be wrong. You believe it's possible that me not believing in the existence of an afterlife, I can be wrong, and that others could be right. So regarding this person who believes he can be wrong and that the Prophet could be right, he said even this person should turn away from the dunya and she should make his focus the akhirah. Why? Because any person that knows of the severity of the afterlife and the luxury of the afterlife, if he just sees it as a possibility, it should drive him to want to strive for it. And then he made the example of, he said a person is hungry and then he comes across some food and he wants to eat the food. But then a boy comes to him and the boy tells him that there's poison in this food. Right? There's poison in the food. Now what's he going to do? The boy, what's happening to him now? He sees the food as good food. He wants to eat. Here's a boy who doesn't know whether he can trust or not trust, comes and tells him that the food is poison. Okay? So, he now believes there's a possibility that this boy can be truthful. And just based on the possibility that this boy can be truthful, will anyone go ahead and eat the food? He will rather continue experiencing hunger, but he won't eat that food, based on the possibility that the food may kill him. So he says, if you belong to the category that denies the existence of Allah and the existence of the afterlife, but within you, you believe there's a possibility that the Prophet could be right and I could be wrong, then that should suffice in you turning away from this dunya and making your focus the akhirah. Like you're not going to eat food that is possibly poisoned even though you're hungry. No. Because you're going to say, even if this child is telling me a lie, even if the Anbiya are lying to me about the afterlife, and I'm rather going to lose out on the joy of eating this food than actually being killed. And if this boy is telling me the truth, then my destruction lies in eating this food. Right? So the same, the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, right? If they are lying, all I'm going to lose out is, I'm going to lose out on some of the luxury of this world that I may have attained if I was not working for the akhirah. What luxury does this world have to offer? Whatever luxury it has to offer, if I accept what they are going to say, and I accept the Sharia and work according to Sharia, all I'm going to lose out is some luxury of this dunya, even if they are lying. But if they are truthful, and I opt for the luxury of this dunya, then I'm going to be destroyed. So, you now 4.5 categories of mankind must already submit to the afterlife and work for the afterlife and turn away from this dunya. The last category is who? The last category, he went on to say, he said, I cannot see how the possibility of ending up forever in hellfire, any person with an intellect, how he will take the risk of living a life just based on the possibility that if he doesn't live a proper life, he could end up eternally in hellfire. I don't see how any intellectual person can do that. And therefore, one of the poets, he said that the astronomer and the physician have claimed that the dead will not be resurrected. So I say to them, to the astronomer and the physician, إِن صَحَّ قَوْلُكُمَا فَلَسْتُ بِخَاسِرٍ. If what you are saying is true, that there is no afterlife, then what have I lost? I don't lose much by living a good life in this world, by following the Sharia in this world, by worshipping Allah in this world. Right? أَوْ صَحَّ قَوْلِي. But if I am upon the truth, فَالْخَصَارُ عَلَيْكُمَا. Then what destruction and loss has come to you. Right? Ajib. And then he said, if you ever insist that I am from the category that have conviction that there is no such thing as the afterlife. Right? That death basically means the end of me. And there's no resurrection, and there's no punishment, and there's no reward. And you're now convinced now that all the Anbiya, alayhimu salatu wasalam, and all the messengers, they were all deceived, or they were all confused. And the truth, mashallah, only became apparent on the tongue of some ignorant physician. Now, atheism, when did atheism come to this world? Atheism was like 100 years old. 100, 150 years. 150 years ago, there was no such thing as atheism. Right? 150 years ago, every person on this earth believed that there was a God. How do I leave the history of humanity? The history of humanity that believed in prophets and believed in messages that there is a God that created the universe. How do I abandon that for some guy that came 150 years ago? How? That's also why it's so important to connect to connect to Salihin, to connect to knowers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you connect to people that you develop a high sense of reliability and trust, thiqah in them, and the relationship that they have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your heart guides you to that which is truthful. Your heart can't accept that how can these people be misguided. Your heart can't accept how could the Prophet ﷺ have been a whatever they claim him to be, wal-iyadu billah. So I must now leave the tradition of humanity because of some scientists. How can it happen? So he said this clearly speaks about that this person, his intellect is faulty, and he has now reached a point where there's almost no hope of him being cured. But we still say to this person, even to this person, al-Ghazali say, you don't accept the akhirah. No, you don't accept the akhirah. You don't believe in Jannah and Jahannam. You don't. Even you believe that there's just this world and nothing beyond this world. Even for you, we tell you that it's better for you in this world to turn away from this world. You're going to have more rest. You're going to be more content. You're going to have better relationships with people. You're going to have a better quality life if you turn away from this dunya. So no matter what category you belong to, turning away from this dunya is better for you. Ajib. Allah grant us tawfiq. So you'll see in the notes of Shaykh Zuhair, if you go through it, take some time out. They're going to create the group and then share it. Somebody was saying, maybe we'll just share it in the Mahabba group also, I'm not sure. But the notes will reach you and then go through it and revise all these discussions that we had thus far, inshaAllah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. In our next dars, Imam Ghazali, rahimahullah ta'ala, moves on to the last portion of his book. The last portion of his book that speaks about praiseworthy qualities that every believer must have in order for him to attain salvation, in order for him to reach Jannah. And you can see now how they are tied in. These qualities are required for me to bring balance, within the forces that exist within me. Now, Allah purify us, inshallah. Allow us to take heed. May Allah make us from those who divorce the dunya. Inna lillahi ibadan futana. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have slaves that are intelligent. طلقوا الدنيا وخافوا الفتنة. They divorced this dunya. And they feared, meaning they distanced themselves from the trials of this dunya. وخافوا الفتنة. نظروا فيها فلما علموا. They looked into this dunya and what it consists of and what it has to offer. And then they came to the realization that what? أنها ليس للحي وطنا. That for it's not a place that a person of true life can adopt as a home. It's not a home for you and I. So what did they do? What did they do? What did they do? They saw this dunya as an ocean that they need to travel through, and they took وَجَعَلُوهَا لُجَّةً. They made this dunya an ocean that they need to travel through. وَاتَّخَذُوا, and they took the صالح الأعمال, the good deeds, as ships with which they sail through this ocean of this dunya. They took their good deeds and made it a ship, and with that they sailed through this dunya. To who? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La ilaha illallah. May Allah make us from those intelligent slaves. Ameen ya Rabb. Bismillah.
الزم باب ربك واترك كل دون واسأله السلام من دار الفتون لا يضيق صدرك فالحديث يهون الله المقادر والعالم شؤون لا يكثر همك ما قدر يكون فكرك واختيارك دعهما وراك والتدبير أيضا واشهد من براك مولاك المهيمن إنه يراك فوض له أمورك واحسن في الظنون لا يكثر همك ما قدر يكون لو ولم وكيف قول ذي الحماق يعترض على الله الذي خلق وقضى وقدر كل شيء بحق يا قلبي تنابى واترك المجون لا يكثر همك ما قدر يكون.
من كتاب مزن السكينة والسكون شرح قصيدة لا يكثر همك ما قدر يكون للإمام الحداد شرح العلامة حبيب عمر بن محمد بن سالم بن حفيظ نفعنا الله بعلومه وبعلومكم في الدارين آمين. مولاك المهيمن المتولي لأمورك فإن قبلت دعوته وأجبت نداءه ونفذت أمره كان متوليك برأفته ورحمته وعطفه وإحسانه وإثابته وحسن جزائه وواسع عطائه.
إنه
يراك قال تعالى أم يحسبون أننا لا نسمع سرهم ونجواهم بلى ورسلنا لديهم يكتبون. وقال تعالى فلنسألن الذين أرسل إليهم ولنسألن المرسلين فلنقصن عليهم بعلم وما كنا غائبين فهو أعلم بك وبأحوالك وبما يصلحك وبما جاء في بعض كتب الله المنزلة. يا ابن آدم أطعني فيما أمرتك ولا تعلمني أطيعني فيما أمرتك ولا تعلمني بما يصلحك إني عالم بخلقي وأنا أعلم بحاجتك التي ترفعك من نفسك وهو أعلم بأعدائك. قال تعالى والله أعلم بأعدائكم وكفى بالله وليا وكفى بالله نصيرا فاعتمد عليه وسيريك فيهم قدرته وكم أرى بقدرته من عدو رده إلى خادم. قال تعالى عسى الله أن يجعل بينكم وبين الذين عاديتم منهم مودة والله قدير والله غفور رحيم.
واستندوا إليه فهو نعم المولى ونعم النصير. قال تعالى: وقاتلوهم حتى لا تكون فتنة ويكون الدين كله لله فإن انتهوا فإن الله بما يعملون بصير وإن تولوا فاعلموا أن الله مولاكم نعم المولى ونعم النصير. وقال تعالى: ذلك بأن الله مولى الذين آمنوا وأن الكافرين لا مولى لهم ومن تولى غيره فهو المسكين المغبون ومن اعتمد على دولة أو جيش من دون الله فمثله كما قال الله: مثل الذين اتخذوا من دون الله أولياء كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا وإن أوهن البيوت لبيت العنكبوت لو كانوا يعلمون. فيا نعم المولى والنصير تولنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا ولا إلى أحد من خلقك طرفة عين إنه يراك. قال سيدنا موسى وهارون عن فرعون: ربنا إننا نخاف أن يفرط علينا أو أن يطغى. قال: لا تخافا إنني معكما أسمع وأرى. وما دام الله يراك ويسمعك ويطلع عليك وبيده ملكوت كل شيء فوّد له أمورك أرجع أمورك كلها إليه.
نعم. لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. إنه يراك. Your master is al-Muhaymin, the protector, and he sees you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, does man think that we do not hear their secrets and their secret conversations? Bala, indeed, wa rusuluna ladayhim yaktubun, we have angels present on their shoulders, recording whatever emanates from them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَلَنَقُصَّنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ بِعِلْمٍ وَمَا كُنَّا غَائِبِينَ. We will relate to man all what he did, everything that he did in this world, we will relay it to him. And we were not absent. We were present. Allah is more knowledgeable regarding your states and that which is beneficial to you. Nothing escapes him. وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا, no leaf falls off a tree save he knows. ما تسقط من ورقة إلا ولا حبة في ظلمات الأرض ولا رطب ولا يابس إلا في كتاب مبين. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees us, we should obey him, we should turn to him, we should be present with him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't see us sometimes and other times he doesn't see us. Like we are present with him sometimes and other times we are not present with him. He is constantly seeing us. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, O son of Adam, obey me in that which I command you with, and do not teach me that which is more beneficial for you. I know my creation best, and I know their needs best, and I know what will cause them to reach me best. Wallahu a'lamu bi'a'da'ikum. He even knows who our enemies are better than we do. We may think we know who our enemies are, right? But Allah knows who our enemies are. وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَلِيًّا وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ نَصِيرًا. Allah grant Muslims victory over our enemies. It's so heartsore to see how our Muslim brothers are suffering in Ramadan. People have no hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy his enemies. Rely upon him and he will show you his power. And how often did Allah show his power to his enemies in this lands? عسى الله يجعل بينكم وبين الذين عاديتم منهم مودة والله قدير والله غفور رحيم. Put your trust in Allah, turn to Allah, connect to Allah. وَمَنْ تَوَلَّى غَيْرَهُ, whoever turns to other than Allah is an unfortunate, deceived person. Whoever relies upon a state, whoever relies upon an army, whoever relies upon anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are like whom? If you rely and trust is upon anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no matter how great that state may be, or no matter how massive the army may be, or no matter how sophisticated the weaponry may be, your example is the example that Allah said in the Quran, مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ, those who adopted other than Allah as alliances, as friends. They are like who? They are like the spider that took refuge in his home, his web. وَإِنَّ أَوْهَنَ الْبُيُوتِ, and the most flimsiest and weakest of homes is the home of a spider. لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. If your trust and reliance is placed in anyone other than Allah, then you have put your trust in the web of a spider, which is the weakest of homes. وَإِنَّ أَوْهَنَ الْبُيُوتِ لَبَيْتُ الْعَنْكَبُوتِ. May Allah allow us to know that He sees us at all times. And may we be conscious of Him seeing us. And when we are conscious of Him seeing us subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that is the meaning of taqwa. فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. And the objective of Ramadan is taqwa. And that's the objective of Ramadan, is for you and I to reach a realization that Allah sees me. Allah sees me when I'm in the masjid. Allah sees me when I leave the masjid. Allah sees me when I'm in my car. Allah sees me when I switch on my radio. Allah sees me when I walk into my home. Allah sees me when I open up Facebook. Allah sees me when I'm browsing on Instagram. Allah sees me when I'm looking at reels. Allah sees me when I interact with my neighbors. Allah sees me when I interact with when we interact with our spouses. Allah sees me. Allah sees me at the workplace. Allah sees me when I'm using the work phone unjustly. Allah sees me. Innahu yarak mawlaka al-muhaymin. Innahu yarak. May Allah allow these meanings and this realization that Allah sees us to enter our hearts. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. And once this realization comes and dawns upon us, it will affect those around us. Have no doubt. Once you are observed to be from those people that are present with the Lord, who knows that Allah sees them at all times, and your life changes accordingly, you will become someone in existence who others would want to be like. No. The famous Hanbali scholar Abdurragmaan al-Maqdisi, during his stay, he lived in Bayt al-Maqdis and he was imprisoned over there with Jews and Christians. And when they observed one night the way he spent his night crying in front of Allah, making salah, the entire prison of Jews and Christians became Muslim and said, we want to be like this man. We want to be connected to the Lord that he's connected to. When the chief of the Banu Hanifa, who was responsible for killing 70 Sahaba, was brought to the masjid of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what happened with him? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, tie him up around a pillar in a masjid. He killed 70 Sahaba, and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, treat him well. Today somebody swears out a Sahabi, I can't look at him. And we must have love and respect for Sahaba, of course, have no doubt. This person killed 70 Sahaba, the Prophet brings him into the masjid as a prisoner, and the Prophet says, treat him well. Make sure he gets his food on time. And he spends one night in the Prophet's masjid. What does he see? He sees the way Sahaba lived in the Prophet's masjid. He sees tahajjud, he sees crying in front of Allah, he sees seeking Allah's pardon, forgiveness. He sees Rasul sallallahu walking to the masjid for Fajr. He hears Rasul sallallahu reading Surah Fatiha in the Fajr Salah. He sees Sahaba standing behind Rasul sallallahu. The next day the Prophet presents Islam to him. He says no. The Prophet sets him free. He goes free to the first well, takes a bath and comes back and becomes Muslim. When he saw the Sahaba, when he saw the masjid of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, when he saw people that know that Allah sees them and live lives that Allah sees us, he said, I want to become like them. And his whole tribe became Muslim. And if that same person was to be tied up in our masajid, what's going to happen? It's going to be bored. There's going to be no one with him. He's going to be alone in the masjid. Not the masjid of Rasul. And he spent the night in the masjid of Rasul. He became Muslim. And Allah allow us to live lives like that. Mawlaka al-muhaymin innahu yarak. Allah sees us. تقبل الله يا كريم. يا ربنا اعترفنا بأننا اكترفنا
وأننا أسرفنا على لظى أشرفنا فتب علينا توبة تغسل كل حوبة وآمن الروعات واغفر لوالدينا ربي ومولودينا والأهل والإخوان وسائر الخلان وكل ذي أو جيرة أو صحبة والمسلمين أجمع آمين ربي اسما فضلا وجودا منا لا باكتساب منا بالمصطفى الرسول نحظى بكل سول بالمصطفى الرسول نحظى بكل سول بالمصطفى الرسول سولي صلى وسلم ربي عليه عد الحب وآله وصحبه عداد طش الصحب والحمد للإله في البدء والتناهي سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين في كل لحظة أبدا عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته
وإلى حضرة النبي
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى صحبه الفاتحة.
الذين أنعمت عليهم ولا تغضب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.